Hello, I'm Dave Coulson. Welcome back to my garden for the June edition of What Plants to Grow for Bumblebees and other bees. So, it's June, it's the 6th of June, it is the most beautiful time of year. The birds are singing, the bees are in sort of full flow, their nests now for the bumblebees are kind of should be growing fast. They've got lots of workers on the wing and the first few males are around as well. And so they need all those flowers, but luckily it's a time of year when loads is in flower and they're spoiled for choice in my garden at the moment, which is really nice. So I'm going to take you on a little wander round and we'll see what flowers the bees are on at the moment. So first up, it's geraniums again. We covered these last month, but they're in full flower now and I couldn't resist showing you some more. The bees are all over them. We've got honeybees right in front there. We've got lots of little early bumblebees, Bombus pretorum. The whole thing is just buzzing with life. Actually, geraniums are quite cool. While we're here, I might as well show you. If you look at this flower here, let's see if I can get this to focus. There, that flower is in its male phase. It's got lots of little anthers producing pollen. And the one right next to it is just an older flower. And the anthers have wilted and the female parts have become receptive. So I'll try and get a little bit closer for you. See, that's the stigma that collects the pollen. So it's male to start with and then it turns into a female flower later on and therefore avoids pollinating itself. How cool is that? Anyway, geraniums, look at this, a whole sea of, focus back there, a sea of happy bees buzzing about. Fantastic. Now, no bee garden would be complete without foxgloves. So, really easy to grow, common wildflower in Britain. You can get ornamental varieties in different colours, but I love the old-fashioned wild type like this. Now, foxgloves are only visited by long-tongued bumblebees because the flowers are so deep the bee has to climb right inside, but then even when it's inside it has to stretch its tongue as far as it can to reach right up into the nectaries, which are way up at the top here. So there's somebody in there, you can see the flower shaking. So that's a garden bumblebee, very dark one actually, drinking the nectar and probably gathering the pollen as well. I'll see if we can look up inside. This almost certainly won't work, but let's give it a go. Yay, fantastic. So foxgloves, they're biennials, so if you sow seeds this year, they'll flower next year, and then they often die. Sometimes they actually carry on for a third or a fourth year if you're lucky, but they set seed pretty well. Quite happy in shady areas, but they do even better in the sun. Now, look at this beauty. This is an iris. There are lots of different species you can grow in your garden. Really spectacular flowers, beautiful perennials, and all the varieties I grow seem to attract bees. As far as I know, they're all pretty good. They don't flower for long, but boy, they look great when they are flowering. Lots of different colours. Many of them like sunny, dry places, but actually they also will grow in ponds. So if we just scan over this way, you can see there my yellow flag iris in the middle of the pond. Lots of bees on there at the moment, particularly pascorum and garden bumblebees. Sorry, pascorum is the common carder, garden bumblebees, Bombus hortorum. Lovely flowers. If you happen to have a pond, do grow some flag iris. If you haven't, then go for one of the dry land irises if you've got space. Now, here we have lupines. There's a bee on around the back, it'll come round in a minute. That's a common carder again. Lupines, as you can see, come in a whole range of different colours. I think they're absolutely beautiful. They're perhaps not the best bee plant in the world, but they're pretty good. You can see these ones here. They've got 3 or 4 bumbles on at the moment. They tend to collect pollen. I gather they're not particularly rewarding on the nectar front, but you'll see bumblebees sometimes with huge pollen balls on their legs visiting these flowers, and look how absolutely spectacular they are. It's a really gorgeous plant to grow. They don't flower for that long, but when they're in flower they look absolutely amazing. traditional lovely cottage garden, sort of short-lived perennial. It should live for a few years, and again, if you're lucky, they'll seed. Now, this is probably the least impressive flower I'm going to show you. It's Bushvetch. It grows wild in my garden, but I've been kind of encouraging it. Here it is scrambling over a low, but what was a boring old box hedge, but it's now become a support for a whole sea of Bushvetch, which common carder bees absolutely love. There's one at the back, but actually can't see one in front of us at the moment, but trust me, they really do. They may not look like much, this plant, but it flowers from June right through to September. It just keeps going and going and going. It seems to be a tough little thing, grows almost anywhere, and really worth having if you've got a quiet corner. Not exactly a magnificent display of flowers, but it just looks after itself, clambers around, nice little perennial, and really good long-lived, long-flowering source of nectar and pollen for bumbles. Now look at this lovely thing. This is an Allium. It's a little, I think that's a little megachile leafcutter bee down the bottom there. Alliums are members of the lily family. It includes chives and also these really spectacular ornamental varieties with huge flower heads, and one just here. Grow them from bulbs usually. You can grow them from seed, but it's much easier to get the bulbs, and they are absolutely beautiful. I think they sprout up in the middle of a herbaceous border here. They're about 3 feet tall with these great big circular heads of flowers. Really popular with bees, and there's a hoverfly on there at the moment as well. Lovely things. So the onion family lilies, well worth growing if you've got a little bit of space. This is a blackberry, an ornamental, not an ornamental, a garden variety of blackberry. It's more or less spineless, so it's easier to handle than the wild stuff, and it produces really big juicy berries in a couple of months' time. But at the moment it's in full flower. And I've got all sorts of other related rose family plants. We've got the strawberries at the back. We're in my fruit cage, as you might have guessed. Strawberries are all in full flower. Over here we've got my tayberries and loganberries and boysenberries. But if we just zoom back, sorry if that's making you feel a bit sick, if we zoom back to the blackberry here, really popular flower with bees. Actually mostly honeybees on here at the moment, but they're of course pollinating. If it weren't for the bees visiting, then I wouldn't get my blackberries in a couple of months' time. So thank you, bees, and hopefully you're getting a good drink of nectar by visiting. Certainly seem quite happy. If you've got space, grow some fruit bushes. Dual purpose obviously. Happy bees and wonderful for eating jam, pies and anything else you fancy. No pesticides of course, please. So this is perhaps a little bit less well known. Jacob's Ladder, Polymonium. I moved this plant here from Scotland a couple of years ago, and it's just settling in and starting to attract bees. There's a little solitary there at the back. When they really get going, they're pretty popular with bees of a whole range. Lovely flowers with these very striking yellow anthers with the purple petals. Nice little perennial. Good for it's not terribly big, it doesn't spread very far. So a nice little plant just to grow at the front of a herbaceous border, very easy to look after. And of course a good one for the bees. So we had Comfrey last month, but this is a different type, different species. This is, I think, Russian Comfrey. There's actually lots of hybrid species of Comfrey around, so it's really hard to be sure. But I've been carting this plant and its descendants around with me for the last 10 years as I've moved about the country. It's brilliant stuff for bumblebees. At any one time there's about 20 bees on this one plant at the moment. It's a long-lasting perennial. You can chop it down and compost it, and it makes a really good compost. You can make a liquid manure by steeping it in a dustbin full of water. I've got one down the other end of the garden. Stinks awful actually. But you can just let it flower like this one is, and let the happy bees drink the nectar. Look at this little male here. It's a male early bumblebee. I don't know if you can see, but he's robbing the flowers. Where's he gone? Yeah, he's still there. So most of these flowers have had holes bitten in the back of them. I'll go and just see if I can. This may not focus very well, but right in the middle there, you can just about see up near the base of the flower. We're just looking here. There's a brown sort of damaged bit of tissue. That's where bees with short tongues that can't reach the nectar the proper way through the bottom of the flower have bitten a hole. They're cheating, they're stealing the nectar without pollinating the flower. There we go again, they're just on time. Fantastic. And to finish off, a classic bee plant, Catmint. It's a gorgeous herb related to mints and so on, as the name might suggest. Not so good for cooking or very useful in the kitchen, but bees really like it. This plant I was given last year and it's just getting established, but it's looking pretty good. It's a really easy plant to grow, really pretty, flowers for ages, and not obvious from the number of bees on it right at this second, but a really, really good bee plant. Everyone should have a little bit of catmint in the garden and you'll keep the cat happy as well. Fantastic for the bees. So there you have it for another month. Do join me in July for another exciting trip round the Gulson garden in hunt of bumblebees and bumblebee flowers. Let's hope the weather stays like this. It's absolutely fantastic at the moment. See you next time.